Magandang umaga. Ohayo. Good morning. Hello, hello. We are super excited to have you here. I hope you're doing well. So, we are going to discuss about the Asian regionalism. But before we are going to dive into respective discussion, Mr. Max will be telling you the objectives for this topic. Mr. Max?
Hello everyone, good morning. So our objectives for today is to define Asian regionalism, analyze how different Asian states confront the challenges of regionalization and globalization, to differentiate between regionalism and globalization, and the benefits. Now let's proceed to key terms. So first, what is regionalism? Regionalism strengthens the collective identity in a conglomerate of nations occupying a particular geographic area, or aiming at shared goals increase in economic exchange in particular area. Also, it refers to the decentralization or the transfer of control of an activity or organization to several local offices or authorities rather than single one, of political powers or competencies from a higher towards a lower political level. So what is conglomerate? Conglomerate means a number of different things or parts that are put or grouped together to form a whole but remain distinct entities. So what is region? Regions are groups of countries located in the same geographical area. We all know that the world is not divided only in continents but also in regions. For example, Japan, China, Indonesia, and the Philippines are located within the geographical area of Asia, which is also considered a region aside from being the largest and most diverse continent in the world. Among Asia, the 7 officially recognized regions of the world are Africa, the Caribbean, Central America, Europe, North America, Oceania, and South America. Asia. Asia is the largest and most populated continent in the world. But geographically, it is separated from European continent by the Ural Mountains, from Africa by the Suez Canal, from the North America by the Bering Strait. Also, Asia is comprised of distinct regions such as Central Asia, East Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East Asia. Now let's proceed to Asian regionalism. So what is Asian regionalism? Asian regionalism is the product of economic interaction, not a political planning. So as a result of a successful outward-oriented growth strategies, Asian economies have grown not only richer but also closer together. Why do countries form a regional organization? They form regional organizations to cope with the challenges of globalization. So what is globalization? Globalization is a process by which people are unified into a single society and function together. It is the process by which business or other organizations develop international influence or start operating on an international scale.
Difference between globalization and regionalism. Nature. Sa globalization, nag-promote og integration of economies across state borders all around the world, while ang regionalization nag-divide og area into smaller groups. Next is the market. Ang sa globalization, nag-allow og daghan nga corporations to trade on an international level. It allows a free market. So what is a free market? A free market is an unregulated system of economic exchange that requires no tariffs or just minimal. A tariff is a tax imposed by one country on imported goods and services from another country. So, sa regionalization, monopolies are more likely to develop. Monopoly means isa ka producer ang nagkontrol sa supply sa mga goods and services, and where the entry of new producer is prevented or highly restricted. So the next one is the cultural and societal relations. Sa globalization accelerates multiculturalism through the free and inexpensive movement of people, while sa regionalization does not support multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is the view that cultures, races, and ethnicities, particularly those of minority groups, deserve special acknowledgement of their difference between a dominant political culture. It is a situation in which all the different cultural or racial groups in society have equal rights and opportunities, and none is ignored or regarded as unimportant. The next one is the aid. It globalized international communities are more willing to aid countries stricken by disasters while in regionalization, an area does not get involved in the affairs of other areas. So the next one is the technological advance. Globalization has driven great advances in technology. In regionalism, advanced technology is rarely available in one country or region. Why do countries form regional association? First is the military defense. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, giporma na siya para magprotect sa Europe from the threat of the Soviet Union, and as a response, mga Soviet Union nag-create a Warsaw Pact. Second one is the Warsaw Pact, formerly known as the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation, and Mutual Assistance, which was established as a balance of power of counterweight to NATO. Next is the economic crisis. The ASEAN countries, along with China, Japan, and South Korea, nag-establish an emergency fund that stabilized Asian economies after the rippling effect of the Thai economy's collapse. The next one is the resources. Countries need to pull their resources together to make themselves mass powerful. The organization of the petroleum exporting countries rose in power when they took over domestic production and sila na nagkontrol sa crude oil prices across the globe. Dynamics of Asian regionalism. This is facilitated by growing tourism activities in the regions of consistent multilateral meetings among leaders or nation-state. When the traveling became cheap, many people are traveling around different countries. When K-pop and K-drama clicked, many Filipinos want to travel to Korea to meet their idols. Because of that, it increases the dialogue between the people of this country. So the second one, this brings forth closer to financial markets and independent economies. Our trades and investment with other countries have been strengthened because of the more cooperation between countries, particularly here at Asia, the Asian countries. So the third one, this is facilitated by regional infrastructure projects as well as delivering public goods. Our logistics became better. We have infrastructures, better airports, internets, fiber optics, and many more. So thank you. Giselle will be the next one and she will tackle about integration of Asian region and benefit.
Thank you so much, Miss Isabel. Now let's move on to the integration of Asian region. So, regional integration is the process by which two or more neighboring nation states agree to cooperate and work closely together to achieve peace, stability, and wealth. Usually, integration involves one or more written agreements that describes the areas of cooperation in detail, as well as some coordinating bodies representing the countries involved. This cooperation usually begins with economic integration as it continues, comes to include political integration. We can describe integration as a scale with 0 representing no integration at all between two or more countries. 10 would represent complete integration between two or more countries. This means that the integrating states would actually become a new country. In other words, total integration. Now, let's tackle about the economic integration. So, economic integration, it is a process by which different countries come to agreement to remove trade barriers. It means that the restriction on international trade imposed by the government to limit import or export in order to protect local industries. So here in economic integration, they remove tariffs, quotas, and border restriction. In other words, pagsasama ng ekonomiya. For example, Canada, Mexico, and the United States have formed the North American Free Trade Agreement or the NAFTA, which reduce trade barriers between the three countries. On the integration scale, NAFTA would be about 2 since Canada and the US and Mexico are still free to set their own trade barriers on goods from other countries. Next, we have here the political integration. So, as the economies of the cooperating countries become completely integrated into a single market, there appears a need for common policies in social policy. For example, in education, healthcare, unemployment benefits, and pensions, and common political institutions. This is political integration, and its culmination occurs when the cooperating countries are so integrated that they share the same foreign policies and merge their armies. In effect, they form a new country. Then the single market. Single market is the midpoint of the integration scale between political and economic integration. It is the point at which the economies of the cooperating states become so integrated that all barriers of the movements of labor, goods, and capital are removed. At this stage, the integrating states set a common external tariff on goods from the other countries. This is called a customs union. A further step in the process of economic integration might be adoption of common currency, with monetary policy regulated by a single central bank. And lastly, the processing trade. So we have here Mr. Max to expound more about this certain topic.
Thank you for that, Miss Jess. So, what is processing trade? Processing trade is a kind of trade that trades parts or components where different parts of the production process are located in different countries. So, Miss Jess will be discussing the benefits of Asian integration.
Next is the benefits of Asian integration. First, it harnesses the strength of diverse economies. Then it provides platform for connecting financial markets, as well as it makes the economy more resilient to global risk. Then it pools resources. And lastly, it creates regional mechanism for safety and security.
Good morning, and I am Rosemary P. Dingal. Challenges on regionalization and globalization in Asia. First, we have trade. The openness of Asian economy encourage competitiveness and transfer of technology. Other countries should open their economies to enjoy the benefit of trade liberalization, while those already benefited must ensure that the openness is extended to new frontiers. A number of countries need to improve their infrastructure, especially in transportation, telecommunications, and power supply to sustain growth. Meanwhile, it will be important to ensure that regional trade initiatives are compatible with further global trade liberalization. In this regard, I am optimistic that Asia's emphasis on a cooperative approach to trade matters will complement and enhance the global framework being developed through the WTO. The second challenge is financial flows. At the domestic policy level, there is no substitute for stable macroeconomics policies. Policies that give confidence to financial markets and attract private savings. Likewise, transparent and predictable regulatory policies and a reliable legal framework are essential ingredients in creating a favorable investment climate. Indeed, all countries must be vigilant about the strength of their banking systems, so that the monetary authorities can tighten policy when needed, without fear of aggravating banking sector problems. Beyond this, Asia needs a stronger, more dynamic financial infrastructure that can handle the increasingly complex intermediation requirements of the region. And the last challenge is regional policy coordination. With countries becoming more closely integrated, each country has increasing stake in the sound policies of the others. Accordingly, countries of the region can play a constructive role in encouraging each other to maintain sound policies. The rough arrangement among a number of Asian central banks are a good example of constructive cooperation to maintain regional stability. Certainly, it would be worthwhile exploring how such initiatives can be further developed. Moreover, the effectiveness of bank supervision will be enhanced by greater cooperation between national supervisors in the region, as part of the development of a more global approach to such issues. Challenges ASEAN and COVID-19. The impacts and implications of pandemic on the regional economy, especially with respect to regional economic governance, are widely discussed by ASEAN leaders in various meetings to forge a more coordinated regional response. The meeting with the health officials of ASEAN member states had impelled commitments to combat against the pandemic. So, the outlining the commitments on related issues such as coordinating cross-border health response, including contract tracing and outbreaking investigation, capacity building interventions on public health emergency, preparedness and response, strengthening early warning systems of pandemics and other epidemic diseases, and support to ensure the adequacy of essential medicines, vaccines, and medical devices within the member countries and the region, alongside with the setting up a reserve of essential medical supplies and COVID-19 ASEAN Response Fund for Public Health Emergency. Also, the pledges on economic, agriculture, labor, and tourism-related issues, such as coordination for preservation, transport and distribution technologies and infrastructure to reduce food insecurity, supporting the development and implementation of a post-COVID-19 crisis recovery plan to build up Asian tourism capabilities, and addressing the impact of COVID-19 on labor and employment. However, there are shortcomings in the regional response on the pandemic. First, the coordinated regional response was difficult because of the different levels of infections, specifics, national response, and political will. Secondly, the pandemic itself results in vastly fundamental tensions. The lockdowns and border closures rendered migrant workers from other workers within the region more vulnerable and neglected. The lack of social protection of the undocumented migrant workers in and from Asian states poses risks to their health and access to health services. How Asian regionalism can benefit the world. It generates productivity gains, new ideas, and competition that boost economic growth and raise incomes across the world. It also contributes to the efficiency and stability of global financial markets by making Asian capital markets stronger and safer, and by maximizing the productive use of Asian savings. It also diversifies sources of global demand, helping to stabilize the world economy and diminish the risk posed by global imbalances and downturns in other major economies. It also provides leadership to help sustain open global trade and financial systems, and create regional mechanisms to manage health, safety, and environmental issues better, and thus contribute to more effective global solutions of these problems.
To sum up, a dynamic and outward looking Asian regionalism could bring huge benefits not just to Asia but to the world. It could help sustain the region's growth, underpin its stability, and with the right policies and reduce inequality. But it could also bring threat in political matters rather than economic if the struggle for Asian leadership becomes disruptive to harmonious relations. For as we know that a stable, cohesive, and productive Asia is thus in everyone's interest. Alright, in behalf of my group mates, I would like to thank you all for paying attention and for listening to our talk for this morning. So that would be all. Thank you so much. Ciao!